This is the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast with Greg Smith and Jay Foreman.
Exclusively on the Hurrdat Media Network.
Tell it to me straight up.
Hello, and welcome into the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast, proudly part of the Hail Varsity Network. I am Greg Smith. You're glad I bit the bullet yesterday and went to the grocery store even though it was a madhouse in there.
I am Jay Foreman, your snow-blowing, non-kid having, helping around the house co-host.
So did we start with an early put them on blast? Because
we're gonna
ever put somebody on blast, and it was your own kids.
Yeah, you got to. These are just modern day kids. I'm even in the neighborhood. No kid out there shoveling snow. Now they don't even want to make no $5-10, but they're gonna get out there today and get after it.
So it's actually kind of funny though, because it does seem like that has gone away. Like that used to be a thing. Like I know when we were growing up, when I was a kid, we used to go around the neighborhood and ask people if they wanted their driveway shoveled for $5-10. See if you can make a couple bucks. The snow gonna go away at some point. You're not doing nothing else. You on a snow day. So kids now just don't want to do that, huh?
Nah, man. They so excited they have a day off. It's Fortnite and 2K and whatever else they're playing. So they chilling, but not in this house. They getting out there and shoveling today. So
all right, so yeah, we got to make them get out there. I'm dreading having to go out there myself. Like I'm sure a lot of you listening, and by the time you listen to it on Tuesday later in the week, I mean y'all already had to shovel a couple of times. But I kind of want to start off with we watched those football games yesterday, and they were two good games, especially that first one. Even though, it ended, I guess, with some controversy with that pass interference call with the Packers and the Bucks. But where we're going to start is we always have our segment, Coach Speak, where we kind of talk about something that somebody said, and then we tell you the real talk behind what happened.
Coach Speak to Real Talk.
And this week, it comes courtesy of Aaron Rodgers, who, after that game, I don't know if it was just the frustration or what, was not sounding like a man who knew he was going to be back in Green Bay. He said, and I quote, "A lot of guys' futures, they're uncertain, and myself included." And then he went on to thank the writers, to thank teammates. He was just kind of somber and down. He also said, by the way, that it was not his decision to kick that field goal late in that game. So, Jay, what did all of that mean from the man that I affectionately call Robo QB?
Hey, well, I mean, look, they drafted a guy last year. They still never have drafted him any help. He's in the situation on the reverse now. I think he was drafted with Brett Favre still there. They drafted Jordan Love, even though he was a 26th pick last year. That's their long-term future, and that's who they want to play. And I'm sure Rodgers is going to try to bring them the task because he's probably most likely going to be the MVP. He's under contract for a couple more years, but the best way to get them to make a decision and a betterment for his career and commit to him is ask for more money. And because he has all the bargaining power. And so you look every year, here's what people don't understand about the NFL. You could even like Kansas City going to back-to-back Super Bowls and they could have the same exact team, but it's still a different team. Every year it's a different team. It's a different dynamics. It's a different season. So he's been through this before, and he knows no matter what, there's no guarantee that he's going to be back. He sees the writing on the wall. Eventually, he's going to be gone, and he knows LaFleur wanted to draft this guy. And so, even though he was a good soldier and made it, and they both, success kind of lets everything, be water underneath the bridge. He's not stupid in the fact that knowing that they are presently and have been looking to replace him. He is not the future. He's 37 years old. He knows he can, he probably could play 8 more years, but does he want to? And I also think that he knows that they had a special season this year. He knows the internal workings of the team, and he knows that other teams are, even though that they got to the NFC Championship, other teams are as good as them. And next year they won't probably be as good. So he wants to be in a situation where he can win. And he knows that there's opportunities out there. Just imagine Aaron Rodgers with New Orleans or, somebody like that actually, is going to surround him with weapons. I mean, just imagine Aaron Rodgers going down to New Orleans for on a 2-year deal and being in a winning organization with a coach that has experience, that's not going to kick a field goal when you have the best player in the league. And that's where the frustration comes from. And he also knows there's a lot of free agency on that team, and Green Bay, has financial commitments to a quarterback that's a project, but it's still he's there on the roster, and he's a first round pick. So he is looking both in the immediate future and the long term future, and also I think he's willing to go other places as well. I mean, if he went out to San Francisco and was out there where he's always wanted to play. So he's a very deep thinker. He's a smart guy, but he also knows he's a realist as well. So he's forecasting things that might be coming down in the offseason, both in the short term around the draft, and then also maybe before the season starts, or if they get through one more year. He knows he only probably has one more year at most in Green Bay, and why play one more year when you can get started somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple things that I thought that you hit on that people missed initially, because I felt like I ended up having, because rivals with the Bears, and I have a couple Packer fan friends, so I kept seeing like these tweets from different fans or either Packer media saying that, oh, Aaron, you can't say stuff like that, like don't talk about quitting on this team and this and that. And I'm like, man, this dude has been the best quarterback in the league for years now, and has given this franchise a lot, and they continue to not put enough around him. And they got maybe a little bit more now, but it's still not been to what you would think. It's not, what the Chiefs went out of their way to do for Patrick Mahomes, right? It's just different. And so I think that that's a key, but I also do think that people glossed over an immediate reaction yesterday to what he said about them drafting the quarterback last year, and how Rodgers has to look at that and know, listen, if we have these free agents that are coming up this year who are also, some of my best weapons, they may choose to bring those guys back and try to get rid of me anyway, because they have the guy here that they think is the future. So maybe he's just getting ahead of the curve, right? Like you said, he's a smart guy. He's always been a guy that's thought a little bit differently about the game. But the other, I think, key thing to me is I wonder if he didn't also see the guy who beat him across the field, Tom Brady, switch teams after being a legend in New England, the same way that he's a legend in Green Bay, and then have immediate success with getting into a good situation, and think, okay, well, that could be me next year. Like, I could do that. I can do that. Maybe I go up to New England if they can rework things up there. I can go down to New Orleans. If you look, like half the teams in the league right now, it feels like need quarterbacks right now. And so there's all sorts of opportunities for him to move on if that's what they end up doing. But I didn't think that it was so outrageous what he said, and that I didn't like the reaction of like, oh, he's quitting on them or laying the groundwork to quit on them or anything like that. But I feel like that happens to players, especially great players, all the time.
Right. And look, if anybody quit on anybody, they quit on him. For how many years has he wanted more weapons on offense?
Right.
Yes, they got Adams, but they haven't drafted a receiver for him, and this was a year to draft a receiver for him.
Right.
And they draft a quarterback. They went and drafted a quarterback that's a project that you could get a guy this year, right? You can even get a guy from North Dakota State this year, or you could get one of the little pipsqueak from BYU, right? This year, the same type of quarterback. You didn't even draft a guy on defense when your defense got obliterated by San Francisco still running the ball on you guys in the NFC Championship last year. You get what I'm saying? And then you didn't even draft him offensive help. You have the best quarterback in the league, still in his prime, very durable, and you draft somebody to be his eventual, replacement, and that's the first thing you do as a head coach. And so he sees the writing on the wall. He's been through it before. He's seen Tom Brady. He's seen other guys go other places and be successful. He's probably maybe yearning for something different, even though him and LaFleur have gotten, along. The relationship isn't Trump type, because the first thing he does, he wants to come in and have Aaron Rodgers, because remember the first year he kind of handicapped what he could do at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Offense wasn't suited for him. Aaron Rodgers kind of struggled. And then he finally, then he loosened up a little bit. Then he has an MVP year, but he knows in the back of his mind that LaFleur wants a different quarterback. And I'm also going to say this: does LaFleur really know what a quarterback is? Because you had Ryan Tannehill, you know what I mean, in Tennessee, and you had Marcus Mariota before that. Now you got Aaron Rodgers. So maybe you don't know how to coach, and it's really, really hard. It is what people don't understand. Coaching Hall of Fame players is a hard job to do because they need to be pushed and coached every single day, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because they're so far advanced. And if you're not pushing them and you try to just say, hey, we're going to just run, this type of system with one check, you're not going to get the most out of them. And so I will say this: LaFleur and those guys adjusted a little bit, but you can just see there's still some scorned relationship there that Rodgers is probably trying to get away from in the last 4 or 5 years of his career.
Right. Yeah, and I think that it doesn't, like, that's what I said. I don't blame Aaron for wanting to, if he does want to be out or if he thinks the writing on the wall, I don't blame him. But we're doing switch gears quick to your Buffalo Bills. They took that loss to the Chiefs this weekend, and I guess so. Just real quick, because I want to make sure we hit on this. What were your kind of takeaways on that game, and just kind of the Chiefs to me just feel like a machine right now. I feel like they're going to win the Super Bowl. It's tough to count Brady out, and I know that Tampa defense is really good, but I just feel like we really are like a D4 bad offside penalty a couple years back from the Chiefs looking at a three-peat right here.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like we're just on our way here.
Yeah, I think that the Chiefs are a machine. They're well coached. They have right now. They got the young guys. With the salary cap, and guys haven't got their big contracts and want to go on to bigger and better things. And they got the second best quarterback, or the best quarterback in the league, with the best head coach, with the best offensive coordinator, with the young enough defense that makes enough plays. And so I think that, the betting advantage is obviously on the Chiefs. But as far as my Bills, I think it's just another step in the right direction. I think that Josh Allen, and I think he learned from, losing to Deshaun Watson, a year before. I think that he learned from that, and he came back and played excellent this year. I think that he also is going to learn from this loss. I think he's going to come back and be even better next year. I think Buffalo's a team that's going to be around. I think they have a good GM, good structure. I like McDermott as a coach, inexperienced, which you saw a little bit yesterday. But then they got a tough defense that needs a little bit more youth through the draft to kind of, because they can't put as much money into the defense. They got to, obviously you got with Diggs, and Allen's going to probably get paid. Yeah, I'd like to see them improve the offensive line a little bit, tight end, and a true number 2 receiver, and put a little bit more of a bell cow as a running back, which they can do through free agency or hitting it on a draft, a guy that you can depend on to take the air out of the ball against Kansas City. I think Buffalo played well. I think that they missed opportunities when they got in the red zone, which you can't do against Kansas City. No. And I think they got out of their sorts defensively and didn't adjust, and Kansas City destroyed them in the middle of the field. So, when that happens, it's just one of those things that once they get rolling, they're hard to deal with. And, Kansas City was the better team. It was a tall order for Buffalo. But I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl, because I think that Brady knows how to beat teams like this and play small ball. The only thing that's going to hurt Tampa is Bruce Arians trying to be, no biscuit, no risk it, and try to, right. Match him play for play. So if he can stay out of his own way, I definitely think Tampa has the defensive personnel to match up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Not man to man, but they got speed and quickness at the second level, playmaking ability and tackling ability at the third level, and a defensive line that can get after the quarterback and get him off his spot. So it's all right there.
Yeah, I think that I would give Tampa a puncher's chance here. Like I said on top, I would never count out the guy that all of us consider the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, I would not count him out, and I really like that defense at Tampa. It's just tough to see somebody really slowing down that Chiefs team. There's just so many weapons, and they're so locked in, and they really are in the perfect situation where they have a couple of guys like Mahomes is on that big deal. But they are in that sweet spot where they've drafted well and they've got guys on those rookie deals with enough guys that are veterans that are on big deals. And so Kansas City needs to enjoy this. So Kansas City fans need to enjoy this while it lasts, because it will not be like this forever. It never is. But you trust in Andy Reid and the rest of that organization that they can continue to find guys to surround Patrick Mahomes with, because that'll be the key moving forward. But as of now, they're in a nice little sweet spot. So one of the things too that kind of happened, and I don't know how much we'll dive into Husker talk during the offseason, but there is something that popped up here over the last week. And it's still kind of bubbling, and I want to talk about this because it's just, I want to say baffling is the first word that comes to mind. So Scott Frost this week, I guess, talked to a couple of the two major papers in the state, kind of sat down with them for an hour, kind of cherry picked them to do this little sit down with. And amongst many things that he actually said, one thing I want to talk specifically about.
Let's break that down.
He said that he believes right now that he'll stand pat with the 10 assistants that he has right now and go the special teams analyst route again to kind of fix the special teams, and that they just need to get the right guy and get player buy-in, and they'll be okay at that spot. And so first of all, I'm going like not even second guess. I'm going to first guess that, and I tell you right now, and I've written this, so I have no problem saying it, I think it's the wrong decision. I think that they need to place an emphasis on special teams, and step one is to hire somebody to do that. Now, I understand that you can't just make a position out of thin air, and that you would need to do some sort of shuffling with the staff. And not that I'm advocating for someone to be let go, but I would also say that when you've won 12 games in 3 years, you can't just look people in the face and say, we don't need to make any changes. So I guess I do have a question for you, Jay, is it like during your career, did you have dedicated special teams? Did y'all have dedicated special teams coach here when you played here? And then do you think it's a significant advantage to have that setup, or does Nebraska need that setup?
Everybody was special teams as far as the coaching staff. And it's just everybody had, like Dan Young was the kicking coach. So field goal block. Obviously then Coach McBride would be over the defense line, and Kevin Steele and Craig Ball, and Tony Samuel would be, on the return units. And so everybody pitched in. So we didn't have a special teams coach. Everybody it was involved in it. Coach Osborne was as well, as far as the return game. So I think maybe Scott's taken that type of approach with an analyst can do it and do a lot of the legwork during the week. So I see his point, because it's worked before, and I think a lot of teams do that. So I agree with his route of maybe going the analyst, but then also I'm going to put more onus on the coaches from every position group to be involved in it. Whether it's Barrett Ruud with the linebackers, you guys, hey, if you're not starting, dude, you better be our best coverage guys on our units, and blocking guys on return units. Our safeties are, Pola Gates, whether it's, Jevin Wright or all these other guys, right? Newsom or whoever's not starting, you better be the best gunners out there, and you better be some guys that can, hold force on kickoff or kickoff teams, and not let guys, run up the sideline for 89 yards or touchdowns like against Rutgers, right? That gives you more speed, accountability, and it builds some depth on your team. And then you got your linemen, offense and defensive line, that's what you're doing. And so that's where, Austin and those guys are, everybody needs to, pull more weight on special teams. And the analyst has got to come up with the schemes and, obviously the drills during the week, but the coaches, this isn't the time for the coaches to go get water and drink Gatorade, when special teams is going. And I'm not saying that's happening, but that's what I think his approach is. I like that approach. I think Scott's going to take more of an emphasis on it. I think hopefully, if he's going to get involved in it, might rejuvenate. I wouldn't say he's not rejuvenate him, but when you get to do something and then you can add some spice to it and turn it around. And this is the thing about special teams. If you change the mindset and change the accountability level, it can literally turn around in a week, and your special teams will be an asset. So it's not like you got to go in and change a whole bunch of schemes and stuff like that. You got to find some guys that want to be good on special teams, be a part of the team, make special teams special. And listen here, if you are a player if I'm a running back or a receiver and I'm thinking about going to the league, you better be able to return kicks and you better be dangerous, because that's how you provide more value. And so, you got to get kids to see, through the forest to the trees or whatever. And it starts with accountability, and it starts with diving in there. And I think with Scott taking more of an emphasis on it and be more, involved, that these guys know that they got to take it more serious and they better be involved in it and be given 100%. Because if the head coach is involved and you're lollygagging and you're not pulling your weight on a special team, you ain't gonna be able to go in his office and say you need more playing time.
Right, that goes away,
and so that goes away. So I think it's gonna be, a positive, and on top of adding more responsibility for the coaches that are all coming back. And one of the things I would say this, that the good thing, he didn't come back and these guys didn't get, I guess, pay raises, right? I never want to, I'm never counting anybody else's money, but look, yeah, you're coming back. There's no pay raises. You got to earn it. And not only do you got to earn it, you got to do more. And that's being more involved on special teams. I like it. I like that they got to do more, along with I guess you get job security coming back. But, let's be honest, you guys aren't, having the best record. But you know what? I want more, and you're going to do more. So I kind of like that type of approach. Especially in this time. And also, I will say this, by him not, removing guys from the staff and, pulling the plug on them. I'm a big proponent of, you hire the coach, you let him pick his guys, and he's held accountable for those guys, and he believes in them. So, these guys are going to sink and swim together. So I like that. Yes, their record and what they've done right now, yeah, you very easily could pass. Yeah, I made a couple changes, but also for the same token, they got a built-in excuse with COVID and a unique year. So, they're kind of playing with a little bit of house money, not having to make that decision. If it was a year we had full fans and a full off season without COVID restrictions and X, Y, and Z, I'm assuming that the pressure would be a little bit more heightened to remove a coach or two from the coaching staff.
What's interesting though too is that the one thing, and I should have said this up top, the one thing though that I do like about this, and I'm kind of in agreement with you here, is that I do like the idea of betting on yourself and betting on the people that you've selected. Right. There is something to that. And it's funny because it kind of also good, like Aaron Rodgers in a way is going to be betting on himself should he leave. That ends up kind of being a little bit of the theme of the show. But like Scott Frost saying that basically like, hey, now he said this without saying it, that these are essentially my guys. I know that these guys know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. We're going to kind of double down on this. Like there is something to respect about that. And so you end up being, but if that works, and let's say they go out this year and, special teams is average, like it's passable. It does not cost them games, doesn't actively cost them games, which I think is the first step before you can get to the special teams being special and being a game changer. I think that they need to get to where, that really, and honestly, it just need to stop giving up, kickoff returns or punt returns or touchdowns, right? Because field goal kicking was very good last year. They got to figure out the actual punting situation, which, they did have a fluky situation where the Australian punter, Daniel Cherney, that they brought in gets hurt in practice, which just like the weird snake bitten things that continue to happen to this program are just crazy. But that just never happens to teams. And it seems like it always happens to Nebraska. But if you can get that straightened out, Connor Culp is coming back, so you feel like your field goal kicking and extra point should be very good. Still got to figure out the kickoff situation. What kind of can you consistent with your directional kicks, all of that. But if you can just get to the spot where it's not costing you games, they can be okay. I don't think the special team situation is what's going to ultimately be the judge of Scott Frost's success here. I think it's right. Part of it, but like ultimately, like I still think if Nebraska goes out this coming season, 2021 season, and they become a 35 to 38 point per game team, that's going to be the big jump that they need to make, right? Now, that's almost a couple touchdown jump from where they were this year, but we could go down the list of why or why not that actually happened. We could talk about the youth and the inconsistency and all of that. But still, the offense is what they were brought here for, so they've got to get that figured out. I still think that to me is the biggest thing. And even within the offense, Frost is kind of betting on himself by saying that he wants to work more closely with Adrian Martinez, and that he thinks that he needs to work with him more on kind of the intangibles with the game, kind of the instinctual things that he needs to do within games, which I do actually think is also true. Like I don't disagree with him at all on that, because it does seem like sometimes Adrian is either he's out there and in full control and is going, 100 miles per hour and is really engaged and going. And there's sometimes where it just feels like he's kind of, skittish or kind of hesitant. So I do think that he needs that hands-on thing. And I do think that it's a good sign for Adrian in a way that the head coach still wants to work with you in that way. But overall, I mean, Scott Frost is going to sink or swim with what he wants to do, and it's either going to be a huge success and a great turnaround and will be a tremendous story if it gets turned around, or it won't, and we will know exactly where the blame is to be placed.
Right, and that's what you want as a head coach. I mean, you want somebody to take responsibility and put all the chips in on himself. And if if you can't question whether he believes in the coaching staff or not as well, you know what I'm saying? And so nobody wants to coach to be coached or to coach with a guy that doesn't believe in you. And yes, it's been a struggle, and it's been a hard go at it. They haven't lived up to expectations. You know what I'm saying? Right. But at the end of the day, if he's believing in what he believes in, he trusts with the process that he wants to go through. He also thinks that they're closer than we are seeing. So I think that's a good thing as well, because he's in there every day, right? He's in there a lot, obviously, around the players and around the situation more than we are, and he knows the day in and day out what and he's seeing the closeness, or thinks he's seeing the closeness. So pulling the plug wouldn't be the best thing to do. And also, look, he also has to have a good dose of reality where he's like, hey, look, I got to do better. But, I believe in these guys. They've got there. He's Scott, if Scott, he's big on loyalty with his coaching staff and stuff like that. He wants his players to be loyal. I think that also, I will say this. Some of the things that have been holding them back on the field, probably haven't been magnified to the extent that it needs to be, right? When you just think of and this is not making excuses, this is just being serious here. When you have, and this is even before Scott even got here or was maybe even in coaching, it's been 15, 20-year process of people coming in to the University of Nebraska and chipping away from what made Nebraska great. You know what I'm saying? I'm laughing about this, but with the saying. But when you have a conscious effort of doing that, it shows up on the field, obviously, but it's also in the internal workings. And then also it changes the atmosphere, right? It changes the atmosphere from Nebraska being dominant or legitimate in every single sport, right? Back, say, like when I was playing, gymnastics, basketball, women basketball, volleyball, football, track and field, bowling, right? Constantly, every single sport, kind of like Alabama right now. Softball as well when Nebraska was here, and baseball, to kind of being average. And then that's the average. Then average becomes okay. Then average effort becomes okay. Then average recruiting becomes okay. Average players become okay. Then average leadership becomes okay when we don't have leadership. Then we said, you know what? We're just going to go and try to magnify one player or two players a year and then not have any leadership. Yeah, it worked because we were, well coached, and Bo Pelini was able to win 9 games, but ultimately, did it set us up for the future? Then here comes Mike Riley, right? That nice Mike, not really here, not really invested. And you spend 3 or 4 years of doing the same thing and not improving. You actually get worse. Then you get Scott coming in here trying to really build a program with no leadership, no work ethic, and you got to go through the minutia of 2 years of trying to build a team, all the while not even being able to handle it physically for a Big Ten. as the Big Ten starts to ascend, right? So
Right.
Nebraska not only plateaued in the Big Ten, started to dip, and then you saw teams like the Iowas, Wisconsins, Purdue, Northwesterns, and say, Penn States and all, they started to ascend at a rapid pace, right? They every spring they were getting better. Every season they were getting better. Indiana, right? They were really taking off, and we were staying the same. And so the separation and the gap became even bigger. And it wasn't based on the 2 years or, prior to this year that they were there. It's the 3 or 4 years prior that the gap started to not only close on us, then we got surpassed. And so those are things that you had to deal with, but the pressure's on right now. And, Moose is saying stuff that, he expects us to be a contender. And I think that when you got the AD to saying that, I think it's the only thing that he's looking for is special circumstances that we're not contending, injuries and stuff like that. So it's a big year. And I think that it's good that Scott's up to the challenge. He's not, running away from being a competitive situation or the challenge of doing better. And that's what you want as a head coach. You can't, as a coach or a leader, you can't say, look, I want more from you guys and I'm not willing to do more. So, he's as much as he's asking from the players and hopefully demanding from the players, he's demanding and getting from himself and the coaching staff.
And that actually, I think that's a really key point, though, because I do think that we know that it should not necessarily work this way, but it's human nature too. When the players see that the coaches are invested, that signals to them that they need to take their level up a notch, right? Like, and I know that it shouldn't, like, we sit back and you can observe from the outside and say, oh, the players should know that they need to be at bringing their A game every day. But that stuff can kind of seep in. If you don't believe that your coaches are fully in, and I'm not saying that these coaches were not, I'm just saying when you see them have that fire under them and they are rejuvenated and they're ready to really roll, I think that will signal something to the players as well. So it makes it a really, really interesting season. And it will be fascinating to see kind of how it goes for them, because it's not, even after all of this and all of that, and the different issues and the minutia of what's going wrong, like, they still have an opportunity to be better. Like, I don't think that they are so far off that they should just be like last in the division and, we're resigned to our fate. Like, I don't think that's the case. And that's why I think Moose says, and he's starting to change his tune a little bit on kind of expectations about, okay, we're going into year 4 now. We need to be competitive in our division, because that's the other thing is as we lay out kind of Iowa, Wisconsin, as they kind of ascend, and like Minnesota has been kind of in the same boat, for lack of a better phrase, for them, where they've taken their upswing as well, and some others. Like, it's not like that gap is so huge, right? That or Northwestern, like, is, whereas Nebraska is getting blown out by all of them, like, you would think that if they can win in the margins a little bit more, so whether it's special teams, or really, actually, to me, if it was one thing that I could really pick, it would be turnovers, is where they really need to do better at, so that they can maximize the amount of possessions that they have on offense. And that could easily increase your points per game, right? But if you can start to clean that stuff up, then you can be even more competitive in this division. And I think that that's all people are really looking for. It's just that now you're starting to get to the point to where you have a body of work of that not happening. And as a fan, I understand where fans, and they say this to me now all the time, is why should we expect anything different? Especially with the turnovers and the sloppy play and that sort of thing going into year 4. And you just have to kind of hope that it flips, because Frost is now saying that he's doubling down, and that the players are going to get more locked in and they'll have more of a traditional offseason. But I mean, like I said before, we're going to know, like, it's not like, it's going to be a mystery as to how this ends up and how we need to judge this thing.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you're going to find out here pretty quick. And
you'll know, and you'll also know pretty quick, because I hate schedule talk, but you will also know, because of the way that schedule sets up, there are no real like gimmies outside of that one late game season against I forget who it is even against, that you have that, because even with starting out against Illinois, like you were like, oh yeah, the Illinois game is a winnable game. It's a winnable game, but they beat you last year, right? Southeastern Louisiana in November. So like, I mean, they start off. It's Illinois, Buffalo, at Oklahoma, at Michigan State, Ohio State, Northwestern.
Right.
Like, the first 6 games, like that's how we're gonna know right from the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want a good challenge. You got to and you got the, as much as it's saying, you got the opportunity and the tools to go out there and actually start the season off with a bang, right? You'd like to think, okay, we'll beat Illinois, right? You'd like to think that we could beat Michigan State, Oklahoma, tall order, Buffalo, we should be able to beat them. But the thing is, we got an experienced quarterback and quarterbacks back. You'd like to think the offensive line should be better. There's no excuses for the offensive line right now.
No, there really isn't. No.
Okay, so then ultimately, if the offense and defensive line are your assets, right? Depth, okay, and playmaking, right?
Yep.
The unit of the offensive line, defensive line, right? You got young guys mixed with some older guys. Okay, so you got depth there. It's not like you only got 3 starters on that 3-4. You got guys that have played. You got 5 guys that are, that I can think of. And so when you got that set up, now the talent gap, if there's one, is starting to starting to close. You know what I'm saying? Because we should be able to control the line of scrimmage. Ultimately, now it goes into the running back room. You got, I wouldn't say a veteran offensive line, but you got an experienced offensive line that has potential and should be better, right? Depth-wise as well, so that if there's any injuries, you got guys that can slide in different places, and you could do different things, right? And the cohesiveness should be even better. So that means running backs, the learning curve and the ability to step in and be successful, and the hole should be better, is there. Then that means the quarterback should play better. Now the onus is going to be on the receivers. We have to have guys that are going to be threats and also, that get the opportunity. So you're thinking Betts, you're thinking Brown, and you're thinking anybody else that comes up as a young guy.
Or you need Manning to kind of.
Omar Manning, the X factor.
That's going to be an X factor for the season.
Right. If Omar Manning can come in, and look, for you people out there that think Omar Manning is going to take a year off of football and come in, and I very well could, and be all Big Ten. That'd be. If Omar Manning is all Big Ten next year, Nebraska's in the Big Ten championship and probably going to a New Year's Day bowl. Okay?
Yeah, that means
one hell of a season. But if he can come in and give you 300 or 400 yards and say 4 or 5 touchdowns, that's a great start. And then you expect in the next year, which would be the following year, that he's able to double that. And so that's what Nebraska needs. And if they can get those things going, and that should be the expectation, then what Moose is saying should be right. Because ultimately, if your offensive line and defensive line is playing up to their potential, the turnovers and everything should be lower. That means your third down percentage should be better. That means your red zone should be better. That means your defense won't be on the field for 90 plays and get exposed and get worn out. And then therefore you're able to control the clock and you're able to be explosive. And then if you if Fedoni plays and all that stuff, then you'll be fine. So it's there for the picking, but guys, it's going to be a long off season, and they got to go about it and approach it the right way. And ultimately, special teams is part of it. But the success and the success of the football program and what you're judging Scott moving forward is going to come down to this offense. That's what it's going to come down to. That's what he's brought in here for. He's known for, and it's going to come down to the offense, and it's going to come down to these guys actually playing and being good enough to be a threat in the Big Ten and score some points. And it's not going to be, we can't have an offense or a defense out there that, we score 45 and give up 44. But what I'm saying is this offense has got to be consistent year in and year out, regardless of who's, the talent or who's hurt or who's not, because schematic wise and paycheck wise, we have got to be able to be a little bit more explosive and more consistent to do what we want to do in the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll be kind of the dominant storyline of the off season. And now every week we end the show with our favorite segment called Put 'em on Blast.
Put them on blast.
Where we basically put somebody on blast for something that they did or said. And today I'm going to go with, I guess, a Laker legend, because I guess, because I've never really been a huge Shaq guy. But Shaq is the guy that I'm putting on blast because he said this in an interview after the Jazz won 129-118 over the Pelicans back on Thursday. He said to Donovan Mitchell, hey, this is Shaq. I said tonight you were one of my favorite players, but you don't have what it takes to get to the next level. I said that on purpose. I wanted you to hear it. What do you have to say about that? so Donovan Mitchell, all he said back was, all right. And so we got Shaq, what are we doing? Like, I don't understand why, and this has been a consistent thing. Like, this is not like Shaq just decided that he was going to pick on Donovan Mitchell and that was going to be the guy. He does this with everybody. He really hates any big man. He's done it with Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell's teammate. Any big man in the league that gets a little bit of notoriety or fame, Shaq wants to take shots at. I don't understand why or when Shaq decided that he was going to be like the king of haters out here. Like, I just don't get like his angle here. Like, what was Donovan Mitchell supposed to say to that?
Right.
What was the response that Shaq wanted him to say? Because like, am I supposed to say, okay, man, I'm never going to be a superstar? Like, thank you.
I think Shaq was trying to, and he said it a little bit. He's like, he said it. He said he said it on purpose to try to motivate him. Right. Yeah. But the delivery was horrible, and it wasn't even genuine. Like, hey, yeah, I hope you heard that I told you that your game was, your game was never going to be a superstar level, but you had a good game tonight. Keep it up. Like,
right.
What? Okay. Well, he's like, okay. He's like, I've been hearing that since high school, and he's exceeded expectations. I think that
it really has. Yeah.
And I think what Shaq was saying is, and they did get into it a little bit with Utah. If he's not playing so good that they just are non-factor. And yes, Shaq was any big guy, whether it's Dwight Howard. He's had a feud with Dwight Howard. He was mad at Dwight Howard that Dwight Howard was excited that he won an NBA championship with the Lakers. And Dwight Howard has turned around a late career from being an a-hole, horrible teammate to being, a very humbled former superstar to play a role.
Yep.
And play a huge role and not play some games and be okay with it and won an NBA champion. I mean, I would think that Shaq would be, more respectful of that. I think he's still mad because Dwight Howard was Superman and Shaq was supposed to be the Superman.
Yeah, that started all of that, right? And
that started
in his city in Orlando, and then
in Orlando, and with Shaq left for, Shaq decided to leave. He has, I call it revisionist history of the best kind. You only remember what you really want to remember. Whether it's JaVale McGee or it's Rudy Gobert. His big thing now is if you can average 12 points and 11 rebounds, you can get $200 million, and what he's saying, and I get what he's saying. A lot of average guys are getting paid, but it just comes off as the old guy, get off my lawn. And Shaq, he's like almost one of those superstars that, I wouldn't say he's been forgotten about and he's not looked at as dominant as, like, I think that part of Shaq's issue is when people think of the Lakers when they were winning those things, and Shaq was the best player in the world then. Okay, he was the most dominant force.
Yeah.
And without him, the Lakers weren't winning championships. But it's all about Kobe. You know what I'm saying? And Kobe won some without him, and he got ran out of town. So I think a little bit of that is on his mind, and the way he goes about things. And I think his delivery is definitely, he's been drinking a full gallon of haterade. But then also there's some truth. And what he's saying is, until Donovan Mitchell takes his game to the next level, you'll just be a guy. You'll just be one of those guys.
Yeah, just another stat stuffer.
Just another stat stuffer. And that's just the way. And that's also Utah and surrounding them with better players. But I think that Shaq also should be more respectful to a guy that's kind of came in under the radar coming out of Louisville, right? I don't even think he averaged 20 points in college, comes into the league, starts to take off, playing in Utah, playing with a bunch of average players, with Quinn Snyder as the head coach, has worked his way up. I think the way he could have delivered is a little bit better. But Shaq is Shaq, and he has that big personality, and when you have all those rings, like he always tells Barkley, he's got more. He's got a PhD in championships, and then when he does, you can't really say much after that.
Yeah, it's really funny too. I also think the thing with Shaq too is that I feel like more than maybe any other like former like big guy superstar, Shaq seems to take it personally that the NBA has changed away from the dominant big guy.
Right.
Like I always get the sense that he just hates that deep down. Like he just is not like that. And so he thinks that all big guys that are playing in this era aren't very good, and that he doesn't like the way that the NBA is played now. And it's just weird that he seems to take that personally. But I do like that Kevin Durant, who is never shy about saying something about this stuff either, basically said in response to this that them old heads need to go enjoy retirement. These boys have coaches that they work with every day. And LeBron also basically said that Shaq was soft hating out here too, because he's taking shots at LeBron too. So it's
right.
just like Shaq is just an interesting character, and I feel like more and more people kind of see him as a hater every year, and it's just weird. Like I just feel like it doesn't need to go as far as he takes it a lot of the time. So I guess who are you putting on blast this week?
Oh well, I every week I could put my Houston Texans on blast because my man Cool Cal is doubling down on the worst employee of history, and he's about to lose Deshaun Watson. But I have to put my man LaFleur on blast for taking the ball out of the MVP's hands and saying, I felt like it was the right move, and lost. It didn't give Green Bay a chance to, win the game and get to the Super Bowl. And here's why. Aaron Rodgers said after the game, obviously it wasn't his decision, but he also said, if I knew that he was going to kick a field goal, I would have called a different play. Essentially, he was like, this dude doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So I would have actually saved his butt if I would have known he was going to make a stupid mistake. And he's like, and so LaFleur said, essentially we have 4 timeouts with the 2-minute warning. Well, you haven't been able to stop them. And if they get one first down, it's over. And you got the best quarterback in the league. And you think, and the ultimate thing, though, what he says when he said this also, when he said, I wasn't on my game. Well, as a head coach, when you're not on your game in the biggest game of your career, that lets me know you need to be put on blast, because not only were you not on your game play calling wise, that lets me know you weren't on your game all week. So what took you out of your game that you couldn't function in the highest pressure at home with the best quarterback, when actually you should be on your game more, because you have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a guy that's going to be the MVP, that's been in this situation before. And this is the guy you're supposed to be working hand in hand with to go out there and win this championship and bring glory back to Green Bay. And you decide to play some analytics game and try to play PlayStation essentially with real people in real time while you're facing the greatest quarterback of all time and Tom Brady, that just went down to Tampa and took the preferable loser to the Super Bowl in your house. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen before. And I got to put him on blast, because he's been doing this ever since he came into the Green Bay. And these little analytics dudes that come in here to get these jobs off of, I think when he was in Tennessee, the offense was just 22nd in the league. He's a good looking dude, so I'll give him that. So now he's the head coach, and he's coming in here playing computer games in a real life football game. And, and he comes out there and he's messed up the whole organization, in the sense of now your superstars thinking about making an exit out of Green Bay, and you got talent up there that could, build a nice little program. And now Green Bay is going to be a laughingstock, because the guy that you drafted last year is a project at best and hasn't played football in a year. And now you're going to be going into the, trying to play against other playoff teams, because once you win, your division like they did, you're going to have a hard schedule next year. So I am putting him on full blast, because not only he's going to be the guy that ran Aaron Rodgers out of town, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a 30 for 30 or 60 minutes, how the intricacies worked, kind of like when Mike McCarthy left and he was up in the hot tub all the time instead of coaching. But LaFleur is on his way to being that guy. The trivia question, and I'm definitely putting him on blast because he took a big dump in his pants yesterday as far as coaching.
I mean, he definitely did. I think that is a great place to leave it for today. Subscribe to this podcast everywhere that you listen to them. Rate us and leave us a 5-star review. If you leave 4, I'm inclined to think you are a major hater like Shaq. Make sure that you're checking out the other podcasts on the Hail Varsity Network, the Mind Your Own podcast, Varsity Club, More to It, the Hail Varsity Radio Show, and checking out the Hail Varsity YouTube page. We do have an email that you can send us notes to at straightupbreakdown@hailvarsity.com. And you can get after us on Twitter at GregSmithHB and at Foreman5644. We will catch you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.